Hi Freelancer, welcome to today's episode of the Freelance Blueprint. I'm your host Lizzie, a freelance UX designer and digital nomad. Today we're joined by Michael Janda. If you're a freelancer and you're on social media, you most likely know him. But just in case you've lived under a rock, he's an agency owner, author of the book Burn Your Portfolio, creative coach for freelancers, and doesn't just run one but two podcasts. He's been one of the first people I came across when I started my own journey on social media, and he's giving away so much useful knowledge. So I'm happy to have Mike as a guest today and learn more about his freelance journey. Hi Mike, where are you calling from?
Hey, I am in Salt Lake City, United States.
Oh, nice.
Yes, we are just getting some hot weather now. This is a ski destination in the world. We had the Olympics here in 2002, the Winter Olympics, and I'm here because my wife's extended family is here and I'm kind of stuck here. I'd rather be by the beach. That's where I would rather be.
You're stuck.
Yeah, that's how I feel.
I heard Salt Lake City is pretty nice though.
It's really nice. It's really nice.
I assume it has lakes at least, even if you don't have...
Yeah.
There's
okay. Lakes, and we had a boat and we would go up the canyon and ski in the reservoir lakes and stuff. And then snow skiing in the winter is unprecedented. I mean, you'd have to go to some places in Europe to get skiing like what we have here. Maybe a few places in Canada that'll get you skiing like this, but it's really a really pretty outstanding place.
Nice. Actually,
Yes.
I heard it's also like quite a tech hub as well, no? Salt Lake City.
Yeah, it's gone crazy the last like 20 years. Adobe has a huge headquarters here, not too far from my house. And when they moved here, that kind of opened up a lot of other tech companies coming from the West Coast of the United States, opening hubs here. So we have a wide variety of companies like that. And we have a handful of unicorn startups here, like Qualtrics is $1 billion company, and that was founded here and still here.
Nice.
So just as an example, Novell was one. That was our first $1 billion company in Utah back in the day.
Cool. Yeah. I'm pretty sure all the listeners know about you, but if I wouldn't know anything about you, the listeners wouldn't know anything about you, but they would meet your wife, how would she describe you to me?
That's a good question. She would say I'm super ambitious, driven, disciplined, and entrepreneurial. I think that's how she would describe me.
Nice.
That's how I describe myself. I think I have pretty good self-awareness, and I know that I'm like one of those people that's just always grinding, waiting for the next thing or looking at the next thing, and then I can execute. So I'm not just a dreamer thinking of the next thing. I actually have the ability to execute, which has contributed to my success over my career. So I'm grateful for that kind of being built inside me. But now it's just unleashed. Like I can't even control it. I'm always, I don't even know what I'm doing. Like some days I wake up, I'm like, why am I even doing all of the stuff I'm trying to do? Create more content or more courses or write more books or run my community. I have all these things going on. And I ran my agency for a lot of years, and I sold my agency, and I don't really need it for the money. I do it just because I'm so passionate about what I'm doing and I love it.
Actually, that's the question I wrote down for you, because you're doing it all. You are doing where I would like to be one day. So I'm very interested to how you started to where you are now. But you have your own agency. You have a huge following on Instagram, YouTube. So you manage social media, all this kind of stuff. You have a newsletter. You have 2 podcasts, What the Helvetica. You have the podcast with Brad Hussey. And you have the more creative agency. And you're a published author. You're a dad. Like, how do you manage it all while staying sane?
Oh, that is such a good question. I think one of the things, my agency, when I ran my agency and was still doing client work, I started my agency in 2002, and then I sold my agency in 2015. And then I stayed at the agency I sold to for a couple of years during my buyout. So I left there at the beginning of 2018. Now that 15-year run, I was all agency. That was all my time. It was client projects, selling, hiring, moving office spaces, buying space and stuff, just the running the business. And I wrote my first book during that time frame, but I spent like 7 years writing that book on the side. It wasn't like I took 6 months and hurried and wrote it. It was just this little dripping book I was creating over 7 years. So I got used to working fast and working hard and working with a strategy and in some structure. And that's really contributed to my ability to do what I do now. When you made the list just now, I was like, why am I doing so many things? It's a lot easier for me because I don't do client work anymore. If I was still managing website design and development and logo, brand identity design, creation stuff, if I was still managing or being involved in projects like that for paying clients, there's no way I could do what I'm doing now. I just wouldn't have the time.
What made you transition from, okay, now I'm going to cease client work and I'm going to do all of these other things?
I realized after my first book was published, my first book is Burn Your Portfolio, and that came out in 2013. And as a result of that coming out, I started getting invited to speak at a variety of things, at conferences and stuff, and then at some universities. So a university would fly me out. I would speak to their students and do like a lecture and then do some QA and sometimes do some portfolio critiquing and things. And I realized that I loved that so much. And I was doing that while I was still running my agency, but I loved it. I loved getting into people's career strategy and helping them see the vision of what they can accomplish and giving them the pieces that they need in between where they are and where they need to get to be successful in their career, helping educate them on those things. I just realized that I had a huge passion for that. And then I look back at my career as mostly a creative director. Before I started my agency, I was a creative director at a few companies, and I loved the mentoring, critiquing, strategy components of being a creative director. And that's what I spent a lot of time doing at my agency as well. So during this agency run that was 15 years long, I really started to understand what my real passion was. And it wasn't necessarily doing the work. It wasn't designing the logo anymore. It wasn't the website. In fact, what I do now exceeds the passion I ever had for those things. It's the education, the mentoring, the uplifting and motivating, the supporting other people in their career. That's what I love the most. And so I kind of learned it at the later years of my agency, and I knew exactly what I was going to do when I left after my buyout was over and I left the agency. I knew exactly what I was going to do. I had my courses outlined already. I thought I was going to build a YouTube channel, but then my Instagram started to blow up. So I went huge into Instagram for 4 years or so. Now I'm going back trying to build the YouTube channel that I should have built in the first place. But when Instagram was blowing up so much, I kind of dug into that. Anyway, I just love it. I love what I do.
Nice. I also think like you're one of the people, like I think you're the first person or one of the first people that reshared the stories when I started my Instagram journey. And I remember I just like did one of my first like talking to camera, super, oh my God, this is so cringy. And I was connecting with someone through one of your posts. I think it was about client red flags, something along those lines. So I just talked about this in my stories and you reshared it. And I was like, oh my God. And then we had a bit of a conversation, and this is how it all started. And for me, this is like such a fangirl moment because your content is, it's so good. And I love that you make it so accessible for everyone and taking your time today to talk to me, and I'm not a big person online. And we chatted just outside of the recording that I was talking to Maham about her collaboration with you. And you don't really care how big or small accounts are. You genuinely want to help, and you also appreciate it if someone appreciates you, and that's the nice thing about you. How do you?
I love that.
Yeah, it's
well,
nice.
Let me just shout that out. I remember when you shared that, and I remember that we were in the DMs, just like two messages later, I think I followed you back because I could tell so immediately, okay, this is a great person. This is the kind of person I want to build a friendship with.
Oh,
And I just had that, you had that energy about you. And I could tell from your content too, that you were sharing even early on, that it was good and it was interesting and it was compelling. You just had this innate ability to share in a way that's going to make people listen. And so I knew, I didn't know you were going to have a podcast or anything. I was
I
just
had no
like,
idea either.
I love connecting with people that motivate and inspire me. And I find that in so many small creators. I know, like you and we've had this on the schedule. Let's just use this as an example. We've had this on the schedule for the last few months that we were I think it's been like half a year that we have been planning to do this, but you were going to go on your Asia trip. And I knew that. And I knew that you were there. And I've been paying attention to your posts as you've been there and stuff. I think that this is something that I really love. Like I genuinely want to be friends with people all over the world. And I care enough about them early on that if I can tell that they want to reciprocate a friendship like that, that all of a sudden I start paying attention to the things they're doing. And I think I'm blessed with the ability to keep it all straight in my head. Like I have hundreds of people that I pay attention to, and I kind of know what's going on in their lives. I know that they're on their trip. I know that they're releasing some course or content, or they just landed a big project or something. I somehow can keep track of all of that. I think it's one of my superhero abilities, that piece, but I really lean into it in my content and in who I try and be online. I don't try and be anybody. I just be myself and care about people.
I think that also reflects in your content, because you just give away all these pieces of like these golden nuggets freely in your podcast, in your content. And also the fact that you don't, like when someone messages you or texts you, you're not like, it's a small following number, I don't care. It's like, oh, let me look at this post, let me look at this content. And it's a really nice thing. I love it. It's great. Okay, let me just go through my questions. I'm a bit overwhelmed. Actually, on overwhelmation, I don't know how you do it, because we just talked about all the stuff that you're doing. I'm getting overwhelmed easily. And then I guess it's my productive procrastination, where I don't do the things I should be doing right now, but I do other things on my to-do list that eventually need to get done. How do you deal with all your to-dos, all your tasks, and do you still get overwhelmed?
I'm overwhelmed right now. And what overwhelmed me, I got overwhelmed over the weekend because I realized I have all of these offerings. I have a ton of free content, free downloadable resources. I have paid courses. I have my community. I have my podcasts. I have my books. I have all these things that are sitting there, and I feel like I don't do a good job of marketing my own stuff. I do a good job of showing up with new content, but I don't do a good job of telling people that I have so much more. I had just had somebody schedule a coaching session with me, and they were like, "Oh, I didn't even know you did coaching." And this is somebody I've been in communication with for a couple years, and they didn't know that I did coaching because I don't mention it. I don't market it. I don't really offer it. Somebody joined my community, and they said the same thing. They were like, "Oh, we connected on this thing, but I've been following you for a year and I didn't know you had a community until I went to your website and started poking around." And then they found that and joined the community. That's a shame on me. Like I'm leaving by not marketing myself effectively. I'm leaving so much gold just hidden away that is available for people. And so I have to remember, I got to do a better job of doing that. And I got overwhelmed because I have all these things that I feel like I've ineffectively marketed. And I got a huge task ahead to start doing a better job of that. So I get overwhelmed just the same as everybody. Just the same.
It's interesting because I had a previous podcast guest where we were talking about all these different things that we do. And it's deciding which plant do you want to water, because you have the podcast plant, you have the newsletter, the community, this, that, but then also the whole sales part. And you also talk a lot about sales. And I think we had a conversation about feeling cringy, because I feel cringy promoting my course, my coaching and this, and then I don't do it because I feel like, do people actually want that? But then what you just said, people want it. As soon as they hear that you offer this, they jump on it and they're like, why did I not know this? For the people that are listening who feel in a similar situation that, I have these services, but I'm overwhelmed, I don't know what to do, or maybe I should promote this more, I should market this more. What tip would you give to that person?
Pick initiatives on 3-month basis. So I'll give you an example of this. At the beginning of this year, I knew that I was going to start my podcasts. I thought it was just going to be the one because I have a sponsor for one. But then I loved the name of the other one, What the Helvetica. I love the name so much. And I mentioned it in the podcast, episode 1 of my podcast, 2 Pixels Off with Brad Hussey. And I mentioned it. And then I was like, oh no, I love that name. And I just gave it away in the podcast episode. I better make that podcast before somebody else does. So I hurried and spun that one up. That was my initiative for the first 3 months of this year. It was prepping and getting those podcasts ready. It was mostly my push in March. And then those podcasts launched in April. That was my big initiative. Now I'm in April, May, June. I've just been in the initiative of kind of keeping momentum going on mostly those podcasts. I haven't pushed out a new course. I haven't done any advertising for my content, for my courses or content of any kind. I haven't done a lot of those things. But now we're at the end of June. Now I need to pick for July, August, September, what's my next push? What am I going to do for that 3-month basis? And I'll go and pick 1 or 2 initiatives. I already kind of know what they are. And I'm going to go for those. That's what I'm going to push. One of those initiatives is doing a better job marketing the stuff I already have. And then the other initiative is a new course that I'm going to start working on and hopefully try and get done. So over the next 2 months, I'm just going to be an autopilot, keeping everything running. But my push is going to be marketing better what I already have, and then starting to make this new course that I want to release. After those 3 months, then I'm going to pick a new thing off of all the list of things that I want to do. And that helps me know that I tell people this, I ask people to make 2 lists, and one is the someday list and the other one is the now list. You got a now list and a someday list. And creative people like us, Lizzie, we always have 50 things on our someday list. But every 3 months, you pick 1, 2, or 3 of those things and put them on your now list for 3 months. And then you do that the same thing the next 3 months, put 1 or 2 of those things. Now, your brain can let go of it once it's on the someday list. It knows, okay, someday she's going to get to it. Someday she'll get to it. I'm going to stop nagging her all the time with these intruding thoughts, trying to get her to work on my thing, work on my thing. You already put it on the someday list, and that thing can stop pestering you because it knows that someday it'll get picked to go to the now list. So that's kind of one of the tools that I use.
Yeah, I call it the 1-day list. One day I'm going to do this.
The 1-day list.
Yeah.
Okay. It's the same. Yeah. It's the same. It's the 1 day I will do this.
Yeah. For me, that's not so much the work stuff. It's like 1 day I'm going to start freelancing. 1 day I'm going to leave my apartment and start traveling. 1 day I'm going to open a co-living. And then over time, I realized if it's a 1-day thing, you also tell yourself it's happening 1 day. So it's like, okay, today is day 1 of starting to freelance. Maybe I'm not a freelancer today. I'm doing the first thing, the minimum thing that I need to become a freelancer. So maybe that is just getting my domain, like 2-second task, done and sorted. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of a different way. But I also have a task list, which is, I don't have a name for it, but it is like the someday list that, okay, let's do a lead magnet. Let's do a course. It's the same thing. But how do you choose what the thing is that you put from your someday to your now list?
It's the passion of the moment. What do I feel most passionate about? What do I feel like is going to have the biggest impact on my overall business? And right now, my business is a coaching, education, consulting business. That's my business right now. So which of these things is going to have the biggest impact on that? Not necessarily financially today, but maybe it's a seed to plant for the future, whatever. Usually it's those two things that I decide with. I look at it and say, what am I really motivated and passionate about doing right now? And what things are going to have the biggest impact on the success of my business overall? And those are the things that I typically choose. The nice thing is that when you have this someday list or the one day list, and you do this exercise, you can look at it and say, okay, I did the 3 things that are on my now list, and now they're not on the someday list anymore. Launching my podcasts. I'm not going to launch more podcasts. I'll do episodes like this on other people's podcasts, but I'm not going to launch another podcast of myself. So those things, I'll probably never have another, I don't want to say never because I never know with me, but I don't plan on doing more podcasts or starting another podcast of my own in the future. So that will never go back on the someday list. It was super passionate when I started it, and I'm passionate about keeping it going. But I have room now because it's already started, and in autopilot, I have room to put something new on my now list. And I pick the next thing I'm most passionate about. That's what I do.
Nice. I also think the 3 months time frame is a good time frame to also see if it works or not, because things need momentum and it's good to see how that's going. The other thing that you said that I found quite interesting was that you're a doing person, that you have these dreams, but you actually execute on them. I know that so many people are learning and absorbing as much information they can on the internet because they're just so scared that if they do it, maybe they embarrass themselves or they do something wrong. What do you think is it for you that made you become a doing person?
That's a good question. I'm super competitive, number one. And so that's a big motivator to me. And so my mindset is always, am I winning or am I losing? Am I winning or losing? And if I'm going to win at something, at business or anything that I choose to set my energy to, the way you can tell if you're winning and losing is by the metrics of the thing. And so I know that a lot of my motivation comes from looking at the data. Are my courses selling and generating enough revenue? Do I have enough members in my community? And I look at those kinds of numbers and I'm like, it's not, my community numbers are too low right now. I have around 100 people in my community, and I really need to have 200 to make that be winning in my community. I haven't done a good job marketing it. Hardly anybody knows I even have the community of the people that follow me. So I'm going to do a better job, but I know that 200 is my number and I'm at half of that right now. That's motivation for me to go and try and win the thing. And I know that I'm not going to win just dreaming about it. I know that I have to execute tasks to get there. So competition, just a huge motivator for me.
How do you create that plan to get there? I mean, I assume if you manage to get from 0 to 100, you know that route, so you could maybe just replicate that. And I mean, maybe it will be more or less the same. But also, if you don't know the route where you're going, like for example, with the podcast, it's first time you're doing this. You've probably been on the guest side, but hosting a podcast again is a different thing. So the thing with the doing is some people make a plan, they sketch it all out, and they are like, tick, 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 I do this. Very organized people. I always admire them. Mm-hmm. They do exist, I heard. And then there are other people who want to do certain things and they have no plan and they just put one step in front of the other. And there's a lot of different ranges in between. But there are also those dreamers that dream, but they're having all these doubts, all the different things that stop them, or just an excuse. So how does someone go from dreaming about it to just doing? It's like, this could be a Nike ad, but how do you just do it? Like how? It's so easy to say, but it's not easily done.
I know. I've gone down the last probably 5 to 7 years. I've I've wrestled with that exact question. How do you get somebody to act? Like, I can give them all the knowledge. I can give them an agency, systems, all bundled up. I do have it in my freelance course. It's all the proposals and strategies and sales and how do you find clients. It's everything that you need to run a successful creative business. Every little system that I used at my agency that made my agency successful. But how do I get people to actually act on that and implement the content? And I don't know the answer to this. It's haunted me for years. Have you, I don't know, because are you from Austria originally? Is that home for you?
Well, my mom is Thai, so I have a bit of an Asian.
Oh, good.
That's why I'm also in Asia a lot, but I was born and grew up in Austria. Yeah.
So I don't know if you have this phrase, but there's a phrase in English called "you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink."
Yeah.
You know
have
this
it
phrase?
With a giraffe, I think. Maybe it's even with a horse.
Yeah. You can lead a giraffe to water, but you can't make it drink?
I'm not sure. I've not spoken German in a long time, but anyway, I know what you mean.
Yeah. But that's the idea. And I don't know. I think it's so hard. How do you unlock somebody's motivation to act? And man, it's a challenge. And raising kids, there's a mental challenge in this for parents because you're giving them the support and the resources that they need to be successful. But you oftentimes have to have patience waiting for your children to want it bad enough to do it themselves as they get older. And that's a hard thing. I wish I had the answer to that. What is your answer to that question? How do you unlock that motivation in people to act?
If anyone would know that, they would be incredibly rich. Because there are things that even we want to do, and even though we might know how to do it, we still don't do it. There are things that we all know that if I don't know, exercise every day, eat healthy every day, I'm gonna feel sleep every day, I'm gonna feel good, I'm gonna be more productive, but still we don't do it. And it's interesting because we all know what we should be doing, but we still don't do it. Mm-hmm. And I wonder if it's often we just stand in our own way. Often it's these voices that we grew up with that it's like, you're not good enough, or you're not the type of person who can do it. And I think a lot is confidence. If someone doesn't believe they can genuinely do what they want to do, they just don't start because they feel like I'm already going to fail. And they don't know that by not starting, you're definitely going to fail. But you don't know if you will unless you try. But actually, I've done a masterclass thing, like the course from, I don't know if I pronounce his last name correctly, but you probably know Vin Jiang. He's doing like communication stuff. Like he does a course on how to communicate well. And he actually said in his masterclass, if you tell a story, because certain hormones get... like certain hormones become active based on what type of story you tell, you can get people to do something. So if you want them to donate something, you tell an emotional story, a relatable story. If you want people to pay attention, or you want them to learn, if your message is to learn, you have a lot of long pauses so that they can actually digest what it was that you said. So maybe it's storytelling.
Maybe. In advertising, there's the storytelling strategy of painting the picture of where you can be and then showing them the path on how to get there, or painting the picture of where somebody is now and what life would be like if they get to where they could be. And then it's the bridge between that is the thing you're advertising, that it shows people how to get from where they are to where they could be. But even that, like, we can look around, you can look at, I mean, just to open the news, I saw Mark Zuckerberg bought some gigantic fancy yacht, something, and I saw some picture of it. It was this huge, beautiful yacht. And people, of course, were making their comments about, save the earth and energy and greenhouse gases and things. And he has this huge yacht. Anyway, that's a different topic. But everybody can look at that and say that I could be there too. I could what would life be like if I could be there too? And even if you give them the blueprint of how to get there, how do you get them to act on it, to want it bad enough to actually do it? We're fighting against this human nature that makes us just feel insecure or sometimes feel lazy, like we don't want to put in the work that it's going to take to do it, or we don't feel deep down that we really can do it. I don't know. I pay attention to this. I'll give you this other one, Lizzie. I saw this thing, like they polled like 100 4-year-olds or something, and 98% of them thought that they were creative and they were a good artist and they had all these abilities. And then by the time they're in 6th grade or 7th grade, it's like 30%. And by the time they graduate from high school, it's like 2%. You know, it's this kind of thing. And I think there was maybe something in the worldwide strategy of education that takes away some of the hope and the vision that we have when we're little kids, and we dream and believe that we can become anything that we want to become. Somewhere in between that age and growing up, so many of us lose the reality of that thought. And I'm a believer in it. I'm a believer that you're going to open your co-living space that you mentioned. You have that. You mentioned it twice already, once, I think, before we started. So I know that this is one of the things that's probably going to be on your now list, that you're getting started. You're like passionate about it. I know you can do it. And anybody else listening to this can probably plot a plan to achieve the thing that they want to achieve. But somewhere along the lines, and maybe it's in the education system, we stop believing that we can actually execute on it and we can actually make it happen. We stop believing in ourselves.
I think it's also this, in education, teachers tell us how something should be done. And if you are getting a little bit outside the norm, if you're sketching while the teacher is listening, you get a slap on the wrist because you're not paying attention. So you're learning it's more important to pay attention than it is to just be creative and be in the flow and be in your own world. And it's over time we lose that more and more. And then it's very hard to get back into just being creative, because we're being told you should be productive, you should be earning money, you should be spending time with your family, you should be exercising. We never really get back into this flow state. But also the other thing that you said about, you can tell I'm going to do this co-living. I hope, I really, really hope it works out, but I've never done anything like this before. And I did so many things outside of my comfort zone that I started to believe I can do it. But there will be other people who, or what you said with the Mark Zuckerberg yacht, you know, if someone just finished university and they will look at that, they actually know the blueprint of how Mark Zuckerberg did it, because he started that thing at his uni, and like there are movies about his journey, so people could try and replicate that. And of course, a lot is timing, a lot is background, a lot of network and other things, and a lot of privileges that we can't even, like, there is a lot of luck involved as well. But you know how he did it, so why would you not be able to replicate it? But then also I think it's the jump from where you are now and comparing yourself to someone who has something like Meta and Facebook and Instagram and WhatsApp in one. But if you compare yourself with Mark Zuckerberg when he was a teenager or just finished university and yourself, that jump is not that big. So instead of like going 100 miles, it's just look at the next hill. I
think that's a really interesting point. A lot of 19-year-olds in university can compare to Mark Zuckerberg today, instead of comparing themselves to nerdy Mark Zuckerberg when he was 19 years old and his app was just starting to get some legs, and then he gets some investment and stuff. And it was all just this grind it out, figure it out every day kind of thing. But there's no question that somebody like him believes somewhere in his soul that he can actually execute on it. And the people who don't do that, they either didn't want it, which is fine. You don't have to want to achieve some great things. For some people, their dream can be that they want to have time at home. They want to have a job that they can clock in and out of, and they can go home and they can decompress and enjoy time with their family and coach their kids' soccer team or whatever. They can do all that kind of stuff. That can be their dream. And it doesn't have to be owning a mega yacht. I don't have a dream of owning a mega yacht. That's not on my
the effort,
wish list.
the staff,
I
the
don't
commitment.
I don't want it. I don't want that. I don't want that. And I know that about myself. But what I do want is what I'm doing right now. I just want to do it more successfully even than what I am right now. I think there's something in coming to terms with who you really want to be down in your soul, and then becoming that and being satisfied with being that, because the mega yacht thing is definitely not for everyone. My fear is that some people have so much self-doubt that they do have the dream of freelancing sometime full-time and traveling and being the digital nomad and working, living on the beach and working at night and then going to the beach and hiking and whatever during the day and living that kind of life. I think that there's people that want that, but there's so much fear that they don't do it. So they just keep clocking in and out of their job. And then my fear is that they're going to wake up 20 years from now and look at their life and say, oh no, I'm halfway through my life and I haven't done what I really wanted to do. I think that's the saddest thing. Like they're too afraid to want it. So they never, ever actually try it. And then their whole life poofs away. And I get so sad about that idea happening to anybody.
I think it's most people, they only really start actioning on things when something happens that's out of their control. So a friend of mine, she has been talking about doing this specific course for a long time, but she didn't know if her employer, like there was a lot of back and forth because it's very expensive. All these kind of things. Since I've known her, which is like 3 years almost, she's been talking about doing that course. And then what happened is her sister's husband died all of a sudden. And he was quite young. He was in his, I think, late 30s, early 40s, and just gone. Nobody expected it. And that for her was such a wake-up call. She was like, he was only 2 years older than her. In 2 years, my life could be over. And I've been thinking about on and off if the company does it or not. It's like, okay, I have the savings. I can pay for it. I'm just going to do it because it's the direction I want to go. And I think often it's this thing that there is something you can do it. You can action on it. And this is what will happen if you don't. This is what you'll miss out on if you don't. And sometimes it's this rock bottom moment where maybe someone has to die and you realize they're not there. Maybe it's something like for me, when I started freelancing, is I just hated my job. It wasn't even that terrible, but it was this waking up in the morning, knowing that I go to an office, the work environment was terrible because the investors committed fraud, the CEO didn't know how to deal with it, every shit hit the fan, and everyone in the office started to like mistrust everyone else. And it's just like, I have to wake up in the morning doing work which will probably never get done because we don't have the investment for it, but I'm just sitting here and you know what you're doing is not going to happen, and you just dread the moments in the office because the energy was just like everyone was so low and depressed. And I was like, why am I doing this to myself? And that was the first time I quit a job without having another job lined up. And I thought I always wanted to freelance. So I'm just gonna do this now because I did not want to waste my time in an office working on, like, yes, I would probably still have gotten paid, but for what? For just sitting around? It's not what I want to do. And I think many people, those that actually action, there was often a situation that they really wanted to run away from, or something that forced them to do something. Yeah. Do you think there was something like that for you?
Oh, for sure. I got forced into freelancing. It was 2002. I was a creative director at Fox Studios, and Fox sold our divisions to Disney, and the .com bubble had burst in the economy and people weren't hiring. They were doing layoffs. And so I was applying for jobs more qualified than I'd ever been in my life, but I wasn't getting jobs. I was getting freelance work. I had some of my coworkers at Fox started landing jobs and sending me freelance work. And then when my last day was at Fox, when I finally got laid off, I had 40 hours a week of freelance work from then on. And I always have for years and years. My whole agency grew out of that. I don't think I had the guts to go and say, I'm going to go freelance and I'm going to start an agency. I don't think I had the guts to do it unless that had happened to me that forced me into it. I give people the metaphor of like life oftentimes is like this river that's running down, and our life has a plan that we can either embrace and enjoy going down the river on the plan that is mapped out for us, or we can fight against it and try and paddle upstream and go to somewhere that we want to go, but it's not where the river's taking us. And I feel like that was one of those moments in my life where I wanted a job so bad because I wanted the financial security. But what I was getting was freelance work. That was the river. And I had to come to terms with that. It took me a couple of years to really understand that. When I started hiring people and seeing that this was becoming an agency, I started to realize, oh, that's the plan for me. I get it now. Then I started to get motivated about scaling and growing an agency. And I started to believe that I could do that. But I wouldn't have had the guts to just quit like you did and say, I'm gonna go for it. I could have. I had all the ability to do it, but I didn't have the guts for it. So kudos to you.
Well,
Sometimes though, I think if it's not that, I mean, you hated your job, but if it's not that, people can look at where your life direction is headed and embrace it. Say to yourself, okay, I guess this is the plan. I'm going to go down that path and see what happens.
it's so interesting because I met so many people who either always wanted to freelance, they just wanted their own job, or similar to you, where it just happened. And for me, it was in the back of my mind. I was never this kid was like, that one day I'm going to be a freelancer. It wasn't a thing. It's always like, get a proper job, climb up the corporate ladder, like, this how life should be. And once I started freelancing, I suddenly earned more money. I could work from wherever I wanted. I felt more respected because from my employer, I always felt like they told me what to do. Whereas my freelance client asked me what they should be doing. So they asked me for guidance. They asked me for consultation. And it's like, I enjoy it more, what I'm doing. I'm having more freedom. And then I was thinking, why is everyone telling you that you should get a proper job to have a successful career? And also, why do we have this idea that it's more secure to have a permanent job? Because especially now with all the layoffs and also what happened to you, it isn't more secure.
Yeah. I know. I love that too. I thought about that. It's fake security. You feel like you're secure because you have a job. The truth is you having a job means you have one client, and that's your employer. If you freelance and you have 5 clients and one of them decides to not work with you anymore, or you decide not to work with them anymore, that you still have 4 clients. So there's this false sense of security that creative people have being employed by somebody else, when for us as creative designer marketing kinds of people, the cost to start our own business is so cheap. We don't need a building. We need a computer and a subscription to software. That's all you need, and you can get started. It's not a hard business to start. So it's so easy to go to that mindset and say, okay, I'm going to trade in my one full-time client that is my employer and trade it out for 5 clients that gives me more security in reality than one client.
With the knowledge you have now, would you do the whole freelancing all over again? And if so, how would you do it?
I would have hired way sooner. I would do it for sure. My whole life that I have now is because of that moment when freelance work was coming and job offers were not. And so I'm so grateful that happened. If I did it again, going back in time, knowing what I know now, I would be a lot less stressed because now I know that I can make it successful. So I would never worry. I wouldn't worry that it's all going to work out. I know it's going to work out. And it's going to work out for anybody listening here too. It's going to work out for you. Doesn't mean that you might not go get a job again for part of the time because you don't have enough client work or something. So you go get a job and then you go and freelance again in the future. That might be the path that happens for you, but it's all going to work out. You're not going to end up homeless and, with no opportunities. It's not going to happen. People listening to podcasts like this are not in danger of having that happen to them in their life. It's going to work out. And so if I go back now, I would know that it's going to work out, and I would have hired sooner. I would have hired in my very first year, because when I started hiring, that's when things started to really scale. That's when the numbers got bigger. That's when the projects got bigger. Everything just got more exciting when I opened that up. But that was my life path. And like I said before, it's fine if you want to be a digital nomad and be you and travel and work and be a freelancer. Or if you just want to be at home, you don't want to go to an office and you just want to freelance and you just like to be home and you work hard and then you play Call of Duty or whatever you want to do with your time. If that's what you choose and you want your life to be that, then choose it and be that and be happy being that. But for me, I know that it was to build an agency. And so that's what I would go. But I just do it more intentionally instead of kind of by accident, like I did it the first time.
For anyone who's in the stage of where they're just a freelancer and they want to go into an agency, what tips can you give them when it comes to hiring people or how to best transition?
The first step is to save up some money. Save money so that you can cover overhead when you hire it. My recommendation, and this kind of the standard recommendation, is 3 to 6 months of money to cover your life. Now, let's say that you need $5,000 per month to support the life that you have right now. If you're going to save 6 months worth and you need 5 months, then save $30,000. And that sounds like a huge thing for a lot of people. And it is that's a lot of money for a lot of people. But if you save that up, you could look at it and say, okay, I'm going to work and I'm going to do freelance work for the next 10 months with $3,000 a month of profit, and I'll have $30,000 in the bank. That's not an unrealistic goal for people listening to a podcast like this. It's not an unrealistic goal. There's so many freelancers out there that can have $3,000 a month of profit. It's not unattainable for anybody listening to this. So you do that for 10 months, you save up your $30,000, and then anything you have over the $30,000 becomes the money you can invest in scaling your agency. So you save that thing, and that 30,000 becomes your zero. That's your new zero, and you leave that in a bank account. Now, any amount of money that you have beyond that is money that you can say, okay, I'm going to bill $8,000 this month, and I need $5,000 for me. That gives me $3,000 to invest into hiring somebody else. I'm going to do that. I'm going to hire somebody. And then the next month you bill $10,000 in the month, and you need $5,000 for you. That gives you $5,000 to invest into hiring somebody. That's the approach to take on it. And it does take a little bit of savings. That's hard for some people. I know. I mean, saving up money like that is hard for some people. But there are a lot of freelancers out there with a very low cost of living. And you could look at it and say they're still living with their parents, or they have very low rent for where they live. And maybe they need $1,000 a month. Maybe they need $500 a month. And $500, you can save 6 months worth of your income need. You have to save up $3,000. That's pretty realistic for people to be able to save that. What's your advice for people? You coach people on this. What's your what's one of your nuggets for those people?
I would advise them to figure out what is the most time consuming for you, and then figure out if that is something that you can outsource. So for me, for example, the podcast is the most time consuming because I'm not really an editor, but also until I'm making profit from it, I don't feel like I want to invest in it. I kind of want to, the thing that makes money, I'm going to invest in that. And the thing where I'm not sure if it's feasible, I don't want to scale it yet until I know it pays for itself. And also when I hire someone on a project basis, because I hire freelancers. I don't hire an in-house staff, because I want them to be responsible for the deliverables. I want them to be in charge of their rate. I don't want to be an employer who negotiates with people like, oh, you're not worth this salary. I'm not going to give you these days off. No, you cannot work from home over Christmas. I don't want to make the rules. I want them to make the rules. And also it makes it easier for me, because then if a project ceases or whatever else happens with economy, like all these kind of things, they're also freelancers. They understand that there are fluctuations in the market, and I don't want to feel responsible for someone else having a job. But it's just for me. Other people love that. So that's what I would recommend, that look at what's the most beneficial for you to outsource. Also, what is the most headache inducing? So even if it doesn't take you a lot of time, but for example, for me, it's accounting. It wouldn't take me a lot of time to do it, but the anxiety of, am I actually paying the right amount of taxes? I'd rather outsource it, like the peace of mind I get from that. So that's what I would recommend. But you're the expert. Good. I don't actually have my agency. No,
that's good recommendations. Good recommendations. All of those. I tell people when you're going to hire your first person or outsource your first thing, make a list of all the things that you are doing, and then start batching those things into the things that aren't your core skill set, or the things that you don't want to do, like accounting as an example, or editing your podcasts as an example. Easy things to outsource. Both of those things, easy to outsource. So make the list of all the stuff. And then you start figuring out, okay, what's a person that I could hire that could do 5 of these things or 7 of these things? And you batch them into groups and you hire against that list of tasks. I started doing that, and that led me to my first 5 employees. I made that list of everything I was doing that I could pay somebody else to do. And it was a big list. I hired an office manager. I hired 3 designers. I hired a programmer. I think that was my first batch, my first 5 people.
Wow.
And it came off of that list. And my designers that I hired, they were not super expensive at the start. They were junior level, just getting started in their careers. And I would have them do second comps. I would have them do client changes. They didn't do the first design. They would do the extra designs and the changes designs, the stuff that a more junior level person can handle. And then the office manager was a game changer, because they were balancing all the books and sending all the invoices and following up and collecting the money and getting it into the bank account and all the stuff that has to happen there.
One thing that I feel isn't talked about enough, and I'd love to get your view on this, because so many people talk about hiring diverse teams, and it's about hiring more women, people of color, etc. But I think often people forget to hire for different ages, and there's a lot of ageism out there. And I hope this isn't an offense, but you have a lot of experience. You mentioned you started in 2002. You have a lot of experience. And I was on this coaching group a while ago, and we had this group call as a guest. You probably know her, Annelies Hansen.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the other guys on the group call, he was saying, initially I wasn't sure if I should join, because she's been in the industry so long. So the stuff that she knows was probably relevant then, but not relevant now. And then he said, in the end, it was one of his most favorite group coaching classes, because there was just so much value. And I think there is often this perspective that if you're too young, you can't know anything. If you're too old, you feel like you know everything. So, or you just know how it was back in the days, and you're not flexible anymore. And I'm wondering how you feel about this, because you have a lot of experience. You've worked with people across all ranges, old and young, agencies, freelancers.
Yeah.
What's your view on this?
Man, that's a loaded question. There are a lot of things we could talk about there. I think for people who are older, it is super critical to stay relevant. Understand what the reality of the industry is today versus what it was for you 20 years ago. I do this. Like I've I'm on the backside of my career time, my client services time. I'm on the end of that, but I stay relevant. And one of the things that helps me is I'm really in tune with my community. With my Instagram and YouTube community, but also my coaching community that I have. I'm really in tune with that, and I pay attention to the questions, and I pay attention to what people are wondering about and the knowledge gaps that they have. So I pay attention to that, and that helps me understand the world we live in today versus the world that I used to live in before. So that's one, just keep educating yourself. As far as the diversity in hiring, I am such a fan of that. But I always went in to my new hire of thinking I got to hire the best person that I find, the best person I find. Now, I had a diverse team. I had people from other countries. I had women on our team. I had men on our team. My office manager was like 15 years older than I was. Trusted her with everything in my life. Like she had after we stopped working together, I didn't even change my banking password. She still has it today. She can still probably access my bank account. So there was a huge trust level there. So I'm a fan of diversity, but you also have to hire for the candidates that you have available to you. And you can't control that. Now, I loved when I had a candidate come in and they were the best candidate for the job, and they were a woman or they were a somebody from another country or something. I loved that, where in my world they were a minority in the workplace. I loved having the diversity in the team as a result of that. I do think people need to pay attention to it and be critical and not be judgmental and select people out because of any bias like that.
I also, like in Austria, they have this legislation that if a man and a woman applies for a job and they both have the same qualifications, you have to hire the woman. And when this came
Really?
out, yeah, and I dislike it because I want to be hired for my skills. I don't want to be hired just
Yeah.
because I'm a woman. And I had a
Yeah.
discussion with a couple of people online recently on this topic, and they were all saying the same thing. I want to be hired because I'm the best person for this job, not because I feel a diversity metric. And there's
Yeah.
also this other side of it where people of color, people of different backgrounds, they are told, oh, you just got the job because of this. You only got the job because you're a
Yeah.
woman. You only got the job because you're gay.
Yeah.
You only got the job because you filled this
Yeah.
whole thing. And it's also, in a way, I love that it opens the doors for more people. But then the other thing, if they're hired just to fill in a tick box, they're not being valued at the office, like if people don't then treat them as an employee, but just like, oh, you're just sitting here to fill this gap.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's offensive. I feel like that could be offensive to the people who worked so hard to to build the skill set, to land them the opportunity, get hired because you're the best candidate. I understand the legislation because there are people who have prejudice and don't hire because of a prejudice that they have. And we can't have that either. So my response to you on that is, I'm so glad that I'm not in those political decisions and have to legislate things. I'm so glad that I don't have that. I would hate that so much because it's so challenging to navigate. But ultimately, I want people. I'll tell you what I hired for first. My very first, most important qualification in hiring somebody was: are they going to be a good fit, a good synergy with our team? Are they nice? Are people going to like working with them? Are my clients going to like working with them? Are they going to have that ability to connect and be part of the team? That's what I hired for most. That was the most important thing to me. And it didn't matter if somebody came from a minority group or a majority group. It didn't matter to me. as long as they fit the vibe of the agency that I was building. We spend more time with people in our business world than we do with our families, most of us. Like you're going working somewhere, it's 8 hours a day, 10 hours a day, and then you go home and you have 3 or 4 hours of life before you go to bed. So if you look at the skew, you're spending so much time. I think it's such an important thing to hire people who fit the vibe and the energy and the style of your business. I'll go back to this just so people know. I mean, I hate that about the world that we live in today, but I understand the need to make sure that some businesses are not deselecting people because of a prejudice or a bias that they have. I do think it needs to be something that is mandated. I don't know if it should be what you have in Austria of if a man and a woman of equal qualification apply, you have to hire the woman, because then I can't hire the person who fits my team the best. I have to hire them based on their skill set. But my most important skill set is, am I going to like spending 50 hours a week with this person? That's the most important skill set. And then the rest of the stuff I look at after that. Are my clients going to like being with this person? Are my other team members going to like working with this person? So if I have to choose the woman who has the same skill set, but she's just miserable, interviewed bad, was miserable to be around, and I have to choose her when there was a super nice guy who had the same skill set and he would be a great fit for the team, I don't like being legislated into having to select the person that doesn't fit my business right. So there's more than just skill set that goes into that business, that hiring decision. I don't know. That's a can of worms that you just opened on this topic. That one, I'm sure people are going to be like commenting and trying to hate on me for even saying anything about it. But
no, I don't think
Yeah.
so. I think it's a good conversation. I think we all have a responsibility, because even if we're not hiring, we might have an influence on who should be hired. So I think we just all need to be aware of our biases and not allow someone the opportunity because of that. But I'm also wary of the time. I have a ton of more questions to ask you, but I'm just gonna wrap up with the final questions. So there are 3 questions I ask all of my podcast guests, and one of them is, would you ever go back to a permanent job?
No. I can't imagine a world where I would ever do that again. No.
And if you today could go back in time to where you were laid off, what would you tell him? Your past self?
I would say, man, this is the greatest thing that ever happened to you. Everything is going to work out and it's going to blow your mind at what happens next in your career. Get ready and enjoy it. That's what I would tell myself.
And if you think of 5 years from now, imagine like your children will all be 5 years older, how your marriage is going to be. Maybe you'll still be in Salt Lake City. Maybe you will have moved somewhere else. What do you think your future self would tell you today?
Start marketing better, and you're going to love the next 5 years that come from the decisions that you're making today. I think that's what it all is. I think one of my big problems, Lizzie, over my career was not enjoying the journey. I've just been the worst at that. I always am looking at the peak of the mountain I'm climbing and not enjoying the path on my way up the mountain. And my future self would always tell my past self, relax. Everything is going to work out fine. You're going to have a lot of success. You're going to love the whole results of all the effort you're putting in. You're going to love it. So just enjoy it. That's what all my future selves would tell my past selves.
Nice. Well, thank you so much for your time. It was such a pleasure. If any of the listeners want to learn more about you, where can they find you?
You can go to michaeljanda.com or Instagram is probably my most prominent social media, and I'm more Janda on Instagram. and more Janda on every other social platform as well.
Nice. Thank you so much. It was such a pleasure.
Thank you.
And enjoy your
fun.
day.
Okay, thanks.
What a pinch me moment. Mike is at the stage in his career where I want to be myself one day, so it was such an honor to talk to him and learn how he got to where he is today. Since Mike mentioned he's bad with marketing himself, let me do a little bit of marketing for him. He is such a great person to follow on Instagram and gives away so many useful tips, so definitely follow him if you haven't already. I'll also add the links to his podcast, his community, and all the socials in the description of this podcast. If you like this episode, please leave a review and hit the follow button. This helps the Freelance Blueprint to reach more freelancers like you who could learn from journeys of others. Feel free to share this episode with any of your fellow freelancers, and that's all from me, and I can't wait to have you join again next week. Bye!